Hello and welcome to the Schooner Pod. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. With me, we got Jameson. Ty, unfortunately, due to reasons only known by the deep state, is being hampered and cannot join us tonight. But that's okay. Shout out to Cox, you're terrible. OU won a football game yesterday, and we're here to talk about it. Once again, not super pretty, but there was some improvements to talk about. Now, if you're listening to this and like, hey, we're going to talk about some Texas? Yes, just not this time. We're waiting on that one. We wanted to give the OU Texas game its due, just as we wanted to give this Kansas State win its due as well. But anyways, before we dive into Texas later on this week, let's wrap this up. Jameson, overall, your thoughts on the game? I know you were frustrated with the defense, but was this a substantial improvement to you?
Yeah, overall from the eye test, it was. There's a lot of things that are very fixable that I thought, finishing and stopping them on fourth downs. They were 5 for 5 on fourth downs. I got some stats about fourth downs that I'll hit you with you later whenever we talk more in depth about the defense. But overall, I think Lincoln Riley finally had his smartest and best called game. He finally tailored what his play calling was to the strengths of our offense. Lincoln Riley knew that Spencer was having trouble throwing the ball down the field, getting receivers open. So therefore, he gave him a couple little gadget plays and some short little screens to get him going and made it where Spencer was 22, 25, 88% throwing the ball. So that I think that was extremely key. And then we've been calling for it for a while. Kennedy Brooks got his fair share of carries.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. That was the biggest thing. The biggest difference between the offense in this game versus the offense in the other games is Lincoln Riley's ability to get his playmakers the football. Marvin Mims, we saw him make a lot more appearances. Obviously, Kennedy Brooks, the running game existed for once. And Jeremiah Hall had a really good game as well. And what you saw him do is just kind of get receivers, get his backs out into space, just dump it off to him for a little side go, and just let him work. I believe on one of those earlier drives, even he was like lining up Marvin Mims in the backfield. That's how creative he got. He made a lot of changes, and that's what a good play caller, a good coach does. Is he sees issues and he implements things to change it. And, that's so much better than just banging your head against the wall and hoping the same thing will finally fit. But yeah, a good game for Spencer. Offensively, really as good as it gets. Of course, there were some issues. The O-line, completely undisciplined yet again, with just too many false starts, too many just kind of dumb penalties, but they blocked better, that's a plus. And just a couple tiny quirks, tiny issues. Caleb Williams having the ball snapped over his head, or I guess technically under him. So yeah, it wasn't perfect, but it was better. So
yeah, and like I said this earlier, I think that, and you kind of hinted at it too. I had not seen Lincoln Riley play a game, nor Oklahoma offense play a game where they looked comfortable and they were within their element. This game looked like Oklahoma offense. Like you said, we're getting the ball to our halfbacks, which is our identity. Jeremiah Hall getting 2 touchdowns. That's big for us. We established the run game, which opened up the pass game in the short term. We did not have much of a big play, but whenever Marvin Mims did have his big catch, it was kind of like oh, wow, I hadn't seen something like that in a while. It felt really nice.
It did. It just for once, like everything was working the way it should, and they didn't really get out there a lot, but when they were out there, they're phenomenal. Only I believe some like 3 drives in the first half, which is just crazy. And I have to ask, do you think teams are this is kind of more of a defensive question, but it kind of has to do with the offense as well. Do you think teams are intentionally game planning these like long, like slog type drives to keep OU's offense off? Because the best defense on the field yesterday was Kansas State's offense by far.
Yeah, absolutely they are. You've seen this in multiple games, and it's what works as an underdog. If you can keep that offense off the field and give them a limited amount of possessions, that's going to guarantee that it's going to stay closer. And it comes down to our biggest problem, and I've been saying this for the whole year, is finishing. We are not finishing plays. We're not finishing tackles. We're not finishing drives. We're kicking too many field goals. And most importantly, we're not getting the defense off the field on third and fourth down. Let me shoot you some stats. Because K-State was 5 for 5 on fourth down on Saturday, that just hurt my brain. I was like, I feel like we've had way too many fourth downs given up. We've had 12 fourth downs converted against us. Teams are 12 of 19 versus us in the fourth down. That is 100th out of 130 in the nation. That is inexcusable for a team that has been talking about being one of the best defenses in the nation. Then I thought about third down. At least it's a little bit better at 45th, but still should be way better from our opponents that we played this year. We haven't been playing, these top end opponents that have just been murdering us. We've been getting these teams that are just chipping away at us. 100th on fourth down, 12 total, just enraged me whenever I saw that on numbers.
And honestly, I can't believe I'm even asking this, but I wonder what the stats would look like for on third or fourth down, because even the successes on third down, K-State would go for it on fourth and completely negate anything you did on third. So that 45 number, is probably worse if you look at, just overall successes at getting them off the damn field. And by the way, that one time they actually got him off on fourth was because the K-State guy dropped it and damn near didn't. It took a review to overturn that. So it really kind of was more of a 5 for 5 in terms of, I mean, it was a broken play defensively. Guy was wide open and just the pass didn't get through. But anyways, that's an issue that I think OU needs to figure out, because they have this bend but don't break defense, and just it works kind of because you kind of grind them down towards the end of the game, but in general it means their offense can't start humming, and I gotta give you gotta give the offense credit for not letting that take them out of rhythm or take them out of momentum, because momentum rhythm wise, that was easily the best offensive performance I've seen in quite a while. They were getting whatever they wanted. K-State couldn't really tackle much. The holes were wide open. And I got to ask you, with Radler, having such the week that he had, where does this rank in terms of his all-time performances, in terms of a get-back game, in terms of, the narrative around it? Maybe not the most statistically pleasing game, but it certainly kind of felt like a moment in a way.
Like I said, I don't think this is a flashy, look what Spencer did. He finally replied to all of the hate. No, we just gave Spencer what he needed to do and stopped trying to force him into plays that he's not comfortable in. Like I said, our receivers, whenever they are getting open for deep routes, Spencer's not getting it to him. There's, another instance in this game where Spencer missed a deep ball. So it just shows that let's stop trying to throw deep balls and force it whenever there's too high safeties, because his accuracy isn't there where he isn't putting in the exact spot he needs to be. Let's just play across the field, play the short routes, play the screen game. And that's exactly what we did. So, yes, and statistically, being 88% from the pass is very good, and there's a lot going on. The K-State fans, as you were there and heard, were definitely just playing it on even more. But like I said, I think that was going to be positive for Spencer, going away from OU and having this chip on his shoulder and coming out and performing. As long as OU plays within themselves and, like you said, stop trying to shove a square peg into a circle, I think we'll be just fine on offense. We just got to finish when it comes down to tackling and finishing drives on defense.
Absolutely, and we'll talk about the defense a lot more in depth for sure. But you're right, playing with the phrase you said there, playing within yourself, is the biggest thing, because they don't have to be these dynamo teams of the past. Just move the ball down the field and score. If that means a death by 1,000 cuts, a bunch of Jeremiah Hall, little little dink and dunks and just kind of slowly
Underhand
down.
passes.
The underhand
pass all the way down the field.
The scoop pass. Oh man. But I will say that was a rocking atmosphere for sure. K-State came out fired up. They were mad. Some of the louder. It was so good to be back in a visiting stadium. But man, I thought people were going to storm the field after those two officiating decisions went against them. They were mad, and just in general, if every game's going to be like this, road games are going to be both fun and intimidating for the rest of OU's time as a lame duck in the Big 12 because that's intense. There's a lot of anger in Manhattan, and the funniest part about it is so much of it was directed towards Texas, which is just like so funny to me that OU. People have been, I believe, Red Dirt Sport once referred to OU as using Texas as a human or as a meat shield for all of the criticism. People are throwing horns down. There was an upside down Texas flag at the tailgates. People hate Texas, and OU honestly had just as much to do with this as they did. But I really do enjoy how Texas is getting blamed for it.
We don't have the Longhorn Network, so that's probably where a lot of it comes from. Obviously, Texas. They view themselves, financially as the number one team in the country when it comes down to net revenue. So yeah, they are kind of the powerhead, even though probably, they wouldn't have gone unless OU was going with them. But I really want to talk about this, the big plays and the reviews, because that was a big part of this game and kind of like what you thought about it from the stadium. Let's talk about the double doink kick, the double kick, because as soon as I saw that right off the bat, I was like, he double kicked it. But so they went in, they reviewed the spot, and they said, oh, he got 10 yards and there was no illegal touching that point. But then Lincoln challenged it, and they re-reviewed it, which is against the law. Against the rules that you can't review a play that has already been reviewed and finalized. But there's a big controversy. So was this a good call to go back and change this? Or did they not do their due diligence the first time, and it was kind of like the OJ verdict?
well, okay, I like that. Well, here's the thing. So from the stadium, nobody could tell the double doink. The only time I really felt comfortable about that is when I pulled up Twitter and looked at it, because for some reason they weren't they were showing the review. But they never showed that very clear angle you got on the ABC broadcast, where it was kind of from that side view. And until I saw that side view, that was when I was like, okay, this is clearly a double doink. But you're kind of right with you can't review the same thing twice. But the thing is, you can't review an aspect of a play twice. In that case, they looked specifically at did he go 10 yards? But they didn't look at the double doink, which made it okay because there's a total different part of this that they just missed. And on their end, they're idiots. They should have absolutely checked that out. Because, come on, it was obvious if you saw that angle.
Yeah,
but
it's really tough though, because they did review if there was illegal touching before he hit the 10 yards. Because the whole biggest thing is, did he touch it before the ball crossed the plane of the 10-yard marker? Because that's what they went and challenged the play. Lincoln said that it was touched before the 10-yard marker because it was immediately touched right after the kick. So in actuality, they were just looking at a different part of the play. They weren't looking at the first yard it was kicked. They were looking at the 9th and 10th yard. So I'm honestly on the side of K-State fans where I think by the rules, I don't think that it could have been, after they've already determined and reviewed it the first time and they already checked for illegal touching, they just didn't check in the right places and didn't do their due diligence. And I think that they got it wrong. They got the call correctly, but playing by the rules, I don't think they did it right.
I see where you're coming from on that, but the whole point of review should be getting it right. I know I'm biased. If it was the other end, I would definitely probably be upset about it. But at the end of the day, it was the right decision.
You're right.
But be mad at the refs for I guess kind of giving you blue balls on this. But at the same time, that's kind of on them. Obviously it doesn't matter who you're mad at, but it was at the end of the day the right thing to do, the correct call, and I don't think there's too much to be upset about with that one because they got it right. It just took them way too long to get it right.
Yeah, and then the other play that I guess everyone was really mad at in Manhattan was the fourth down not catch. So I did my math wrong. It wasn't 5 for 5. So it was at least over 80% conversion rate on fourth down. Ergo, that is horrible for OU's defense. But what was that perceived as? Because that was clear as day a drop on replay. But was that just fans just being angry at the situation in general? And just there's so many times what we see in sports, and it's one of my least favorite things. If something doesn't go a fan's way and it just doesn't go, even though it's clear on the replay that you guys like dropped the pass or there was a foul in basketball and, fans boo just because it doesn't go their way. Was it more so like that or was some legitimate anger there?
I feel like we don't realize how bad the scoreboards can be. Even though these are nice, brand new scoreboards, the detail is just not even remotely the same as watching it on your phone. So at a play like that, it was kind of undeterminable, but I think they legitimately thought he caught it. Because they thought he had control the entire time when he didn't. It moved. It was laying on the damn field. So that was one where I think the biggest thing was the scoreboards there. Because the detail wasn't there. That was especially the case with the double kick, that you could not tell at all that it was kicked twice. But yeah, I think some of that has to do with the scoreboards. And as a fan, if you want to be a educated fan, you just have to realize, you know what? I can't really see this right. Like, you don't know what's going on. Let's be honest.
I just thought of Winnie the Pooh in his little tuxedo, an educated fan. I'm an OU fan, an educated fan. Winnie the Pooh.
We're just sitting there with that smirk. Yes. Just like verbal meme, first Pooh, it's all like, that's bullshit, that's our ball. Educated fan. I don't know what's going on.
Honestly. Yeah. But those are big things, and there's a lot of controversy in this game. But overall, a lot of it went OU's way. When it comes down to spreads, K-State got the backdoor cover through the kickoff. And there's a lot of penalties on the offensive line. So let's just hop in and break down the offensive side of the ball. And I want to start with the offensive line because although they had a good game, they played much better than they had in the last week versus West Virginia. Just schematically and blocking wise, there's still a lot of things to be concerned about. I took first note of Andrew Rame is not this freshman phenom, redshirt freshman phenom that Creed Humphrey is. We've got to stop comparing them. I understand they're both Oklahoma guys, and they're both very highly touted guys. Bill Beanbo loves both of them. Great high character people, but he's not Creed Humphrey. There was a couple plays that he just completely whiffed on blocks and he looked lost out there. I think the center position is a problem for us right now. And you can tell that Creed Humphrey being there, even if he wasn't blocking perfectly, because he had a couple of pressures given up last year and kind of didn't do as well as we thought he would be. He was commanding the offensive line, telling them where to go, and was very good as, being the leader of that team. Andrew Rame stepping in there as, his first time, and he didn't even start for the first game of the season. He's not that. So we just cannot compare the two at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely you can't. I think more than anything, it should highlight how special Creed Humphrey was. I feel like OU's tradition with offensive linemen is especially recent history, is so deep that it's easy to just be like, oh, you just replace him, Beaton will get it anyways. But, those were great players. Honestly, Andrew Rame might be a great player one day. But right now, it is so much easier to say, yeah, let's just put in another true freshman like we did with Creed and it'll work. And I think for the future, we have to kind of pump our brakes on that. Because he's not there. He's not there at all. It's one of the weaker spots. In terms of leadership, it's all over the place. Nobody is quite on the same page assignment-wise. It's said often that the center is the quarterback of the offensive line and has way more leadership abilities than you would, honestly really ever expect, if you and I just, sitting from our couch or from the stands. And like you said, the leadership ability, not quite there. The skill set, not quite there yet. And yeah, in retrospect, losing Creed Humphrey, massive, massive loss there. And I think we have to kind of reevaluate how we look at, losing O-line talent.
Yeah, and I know that it's at least going through Lincoln and Beat Bo's mind right now of like, could we switch things up just a little bit? Could we have moved Chris Murray over to center like we were considering in the preseason? Could we move him over now and then shift Tyrese Robinson, who's been an absolute problem at the right tackle, does not have the lateral quickness. And I think a lot of the problem with Tyrese Robinson getting false starts and penalties, because he knows he's not a true right tackle. He has to get an extra break off to get the edge rusher because he doesn't believe in himself. He's a guard. And at the next level, and I understand kicking him out to tackle is better for preparing them for the NFL. They want to see versatility in guards and tackles to where you can play both. But if he's going to go to the NFL and play, which he needs to do a whole lot better, he's going to play guard no matter what because he does not have the lateral quickness and the arm length to play right tackle. And I think OU's regretting that, and they don't know what to do because his backup, is it going to be Eric Swenson, who has the same problem? And Wanya Morris is doing all of his work at left and completely went in to back up Anton Harrison. So if we would have put in Wanya over at the right and practiced him there and pushed in, Tyrese into the guard, I think we'd be having a whole different conversation this year about how our offensive line is doing because everyone's out of position, it just seems.
Yeah, definitely. The whole line just seems all over the place, and Robinson is absolutely a problem in terms of just like you said, he needs that extra step, but in terms of discipline, he's been off. I believe he was responsible for several false starts. Obviously, and that horrible penalty that really throw that game back into jeopardy. And Lincoln gave him an earful. So hopefully he can respond from that, rebound from that, and get better. But honestly, that is such an issue. Sure.
You'd think after that his leash is definitely a lot tighter now. I feel like that right tackle was a very loose leash because, like I said, there's not many people behind him. I wouldn't be surprised if he screws around in the Texas game that we give someone else a different. We send out Swenson at the right tackle.
Yep.
We moved Bray Walker into guard and he hasn't played tackle in a while, but maybe he'd move into tackle, doubtful. But all in all, Tyrese is not solid in that spot anymore. To be completely honest, I don't think anyone has a solid hold on their job. Marquise Hayes, he's had his moments as well. It looks like he is the same old Marquise Hayes that we've always known. We'll get a really big pancake block, a big, nice play. Will look good in a counter, but the next play he'll do something stupid.
Yeah, it's about consistency, and this O-line just hasn't. They haven't found a combination that just works, and if it was working, even like remotely working, it's getting closer. I would be like, hey, let's stop switching things up. But this is stuff that should have been happening in the off season. This might be a situation where maybe Beat Bo and everyone were like just way too hype on this, or buying into this hype way too much, because whatever, this is not working. So they have to change it up. And Texas, Texas is like the last place in the world you want to be trying to fiddle with things and change things up in the Cotton Bowl, because that is, that's where you have to figure yourself out. You have to put your best foot forward, no matter how good or bad you are. And that's something that could get you beat in the Cotton Bowl for sure. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on to some of the other parts of the offensive line, or the offense. Obviously touched on the running game. Kennedy Brooks, goodness gracious, so good to have him back. Am I right?
Yeah, and he completely said, I'm the number one back. We're not splitting carries with Eric Gray anymore. 15 carries for Kennedy, 4 for Eric, and he looked like the Le'Veon Bell-esque running back that we had been promised, that we missed all of last year. Was reading the blocks correctly, was choosing the right holes, was very meticulous, and it showed in his averages. He was averaging just over 6 yards a carry, and he was opening up our offense. That's why we need a solid running game, because then Spencer can have open halfbacks to Jeremiah Hall, open throws to some of the, Marvin Mims. Mike Woods gets a lot more open whenever those running backs are a threat.
Yeah, no, I mean exactly. It opens up everything because you can't just sit back and let the OU running or the OU passing game just not know what to do. And you even saw Spencer Rattler take some advantage of that at times when they were sitting back. His willingness to run seemed a little bit more than usual, but Brooks establishing the run, just like letting him get his damn 15 carries, letting him grind, that was key. One thing I did notice, Eric Gray obviously did play a bit, but I found it interesting. They had Gray actually, playing out of the backfield as a receiver. Brooks didn't touch the ball once through a pass. So I think that's kind of interesting, and I think it shows you where Eric Gray is successful. It's when he has that space, when he's allowed to kind of cook, when he's allowed to work a little bit. But as a just straight up, like, let's line up and run the damn football, Kennedy Brooks is absolutely that guy.
Yeah, Eric Gray's the big play. If you give him a big hole, he's hitting it and he's going. You give him a screen, he's going, making plays. But it just diagnosing the defensive line and finding the correct gap up to go, that's Kennedy's game. And I'm really glad that we figured that out. And this is what we needed on the offense. I think that all of the majority of the concerns, I understand there's a lot when it comes down to the secondary and then a little bit of the linebackers on defense, but OU's identity this season and what's been frustrating fans is because we're not looking right. And this game offensively, even though we didn't get as many possessions as we wanted to, we just looked right because we finally had that running game. And Lincoln, without a solid, consistent running back, it's never happened.
Yeah. I mean, it's been the most underrated part of OU football since Lincoln Riley's taken over, is just always having good running backs. And the addition of more Jeremiah Hall touches, more involvement there, it's going to help out with our depth, which I'm a fan of. I love the Bullfrog, and he had a great game. I feel like a sneaky good game. As a receiver, was very, very invaluable as well. But let's talk about the receivers as well. A very balanced performance. No one got more than 4 receptions. And Marvin Mims, he's back, I guess. 71 yards, 4 catches. Pretty solid.
Yeah, that 40-yard catch was a breath of fresh air. I was talking about we have not had many big plays at all this year. And whenever he caught that and ran a little bit, I think the announcer said something like, oh, there he is, or there's the big play we've been looking for. That was big. I was very proud of him. How about Drake Stoops and his catch? He went back for it and caught that whenever he went for 20 yards or so. That was an impressive catch. He has got stickum on his gloves. And, we keep on talking about him. We just say, and Ty always like to say, there's no excuse for a team like Oklahoma where Drake Stoops is one of your most for sure wide receivers. But yeah, he doesn't, maybe the physical tools aren't there when it comes down to height and a little bit of speed in comparison to his height, but his hands are top notch.
Yeah, and he's just so reliable. Like, if you need a big conversion, just throw it to Drake Stoops. Let the kid work. And he always like kind of slips under the radar a bit. But man, he is so invaluable to this offense. I just love watching him play. I gotta say, also shout out Jaden Hazelwood for a really solid block on
his
that
blocking.
one.
Yeah,
Ooh,
that's good because if
Yeah.
he's not having a big game, because he views himself as a wide receiver one, a guy that can be a first round pick in the NFL draft, because that's just how coming out as one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver in the country at a high school. You got to have that attitude to you. But if you only have one catch in the game, but he still has the wherewithal and the drive to go out and block like that, that shows a high character and strong guy that I really like.
Yeah, for sure. I love it, and that's what makes CeeDee Lamb, for example, is his blocking ability set him apart. That's what separates every big NFL receiver OU's produced. Sterling Shepard was the same way. It's the blocking ability, and that's just huge. I also got to give a shout out. Braden Willis, pretty solid game sneakily as well. So the podcast boys on their end had a pretty damn good performance, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess we can just move on to the game ball. It's got to be Kennedy Brooks. There's no doubt in my mind. You can make an argument for Spencer. I understand some people are going to dock him for that interception, but that was more of a I'm just going to throw it up, hope for a penalty, hope for a for sure catch. If not, it's my punt. So I'm not throwing too much stock into that interception. But Kennedy, like I said, Kennedy Brooks and him opening up the running game opened up everything else in our offense.
Yeah, I mean, Brooks he's the guy for sure. And that the entire running game is the entire key to this offense. It opens up everything. I will say, leaving the stadium, I was writing notes and gave it to Jeremiah Hall, so I'm going to stick with the Bullfrog. Even though the stat sheet doesn't look that impressive, in the stands,
Two touchdowns.
Yeah, he did what he needed to do. He popped up at good moments, and his added versatility to the running game was key. And again, he wasn't the guy. He wasn't the MVP, but he had this he added an element to this offense that OU sorely needed. So I'm gonna give it to the Bullfrog. Why not? I love it.
Yeah, I did enjoy, his two runs. It felt like they couldn't get him down on the first touch. And then whenever they said the underhand scoop throw, they're like, oh, Patrick Mahomes. Guess what Patrick Mahomes did today? The exact same type of underhand throw to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So that's just, it's pretty cool. So
you think he's taking notes?
No, I think that Lincoln is taking notes on the best offense in the NFL.
Clearly,
but
yeah.
Hopefully not taking notes on their defense and secondary.
Fair enough.
Yeah, let's move on to the defense. I want to say a couple things about them and little things that I am concerned about moving forward. Defensive line got contained by K-State's offensive line, and it wasn't something we're familiar in seeing this year. Our pass rush was not to the point where it's one of the best in the nation. K-State has a very veteran group that was very strong and was protecting a Skylar Thompson who was not mobile in the slightest. And probably just, if we would have gotten some pressure and pushed him out of the pocket, we could have really done well. So that K-State offensive line was very much their MVP. We can talk about the linebackers in the secondary, but what did you think about our defensive line's ability to get a pass rush?
I mean, they felt close a bunch of times, but as you said, it's about finishing. I know you were talking about a different aspect, but it's across the board. And maybe some of the more biased folk on Twitter or look, there's holding every play, but man, it kind of felt like Perrion Winfrey was getting just absolutely. You felt like he was getting held, but that shouldn't be an excuse. You really should break through and and get to him a little bit more. And they were getting close, but that's the difference. If that was Will Howard, there would be a lot more issues. And to be fair, Thompson did put the ball in some precarious situations that OU just dropped. I mean, there were opportunities to get off the field, but how you get off the field, how you go from getting close to actually having a big win here is making that extra difference, getting there a second or two early, and doing it more consistently. And frankly, the D line just did not do that this game for sure.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I believe in the talent of this defensive line and them having an all right game. I really chalk that up a lot to the K-State's offensive line, how they played. They were very solid, but one thing I do want to say is losing Jalen Redmond, I thought we'd be just okay. But last week, when watching the tape, I saw a little bit of a difference, and I was like, okay, I think we'll still be fine with our backups at D-tackle with Josh Ellison. But I think we're kind of missing him a little bit. He was extremely versatile, and the more the merrier on the defensive line.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially for a defensive line that loves to shift as much as it does, that loves to rotate as much as it does, losing a piece to that is huge. And like you said, the versatility, he is obviously a large gentleman, but he does have a little bit of speed to him. He isn't Nick Benito for sure, but He's a he does stuff that a lot. There are a very, 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 very small amount of human beings that are that large that can move as fast as he can.
Yeah.
And just in the world. So having what, there aren't a lot of them on this roster, and he is definitely one of them. So Redmond needs to get back for this D line to start getting back to its full potential. And it goes to what I was saying earlier. It's about speed. It's about getting there. It's about that extra second. And those extra seconds in your 40 time as a D lineman, that can help do it. So that is a skill set we desperately need back in the rotation.
Yeah, and I feel like what we've seen this a lot this year, Perry Winfrey is famous for this, and Isaiah Thomas has been doing it frequently this year, even though Isaiah Thomas had a good game and he got in the backfield a lot, is once we get back there, we've got to contain the quarterback and get the sack. Once we give pressure, these quarterbacks aren't Spencer Rattler, and as soon as they see any pressure, they're rolling out and they're throwing crazy, stupid stuff. The teams like we've been playing have been very composed quarterbacks. Skylar Thompson was taking the pressure that we did give, and was very composed in the pocket. He did not have much, room to run. But I think knowing that in the back of his head, it was like, I just need to go and just make my throws, and I can't run and just be too helter-skelter about things. And I think it was overall positive in his passing game. Like looking at his stat line, like 29 to 41, 320 yards, 3 touchdowns for a guy who knows he can't run the ball, a guy that has roasted us on running throughout his past couple of years as a quarterback, who had negative yards running and didn't even try to run. He had 1 rush, and I think that was the sack. The sack. So he never ran the ball once.
And he shouldn't have, because he was clearly physically off. And he was obviously a late addition. In the pregame, starting lineups video, they showed Will Howard as the starting quarterback, and he got booed. So
I'm glad that K-State fans also hold that sentiment against Will Howard as the pod does.
The K-State fan to the right of us, I believe, referred to him as Horrible Howard. So sadly, now you can use that, I suppose, for me. But yeah, no, Thompson was a game changer. Even though he couldn't run, which is like kind of the biggest part about Skylar Thompson, but just as a pure quarterback, he was very solid, very, very surgical. But like we were saying, when you have a physical ailment, when he's beat up like that, you gotta get to him. You gotta pound him. You gotta make it uncomfortable for him. Hey, credit to K-State. They made sure their guy did not get beat up for sure. So we touched on this at the earlier part of the podcast, but we just couldn't get the damn team off of the field. How much of that is at that second level? Those slants, those, those small bit passes. Where does the responsibility fall there for, figuring out how to make sure you don't have just a billion slants like it's NCAA 14?
Oh, it's huge, and I still don't see us doing that much better against the slant. It's something that's clear as day that you can see that even your average Joe on the sidelines notice that we're just getting roasted on the slants. Billy Bowman had 1 deflection on a slant in this game, but he's the nickelback. He should be doing that. That's what nickelbacks do. They play press coverage and they get in your face. Our outside cornerbacks are not. They're not doing that. I don't know what Jaden Davis is doing. Jaden Davis is looking rough. And when it comes down to cornerbacks, we need him to be solid. I'm tired of seeing these young freshman defensive backs regress. It was a topic on the message boards I was reading, and I feel like as long as day in Oklahoma, we get these guys to do great their true freshman year, and then they drop off slowly. You've seen it with Jordan Thomas. You've seen it with Zach Sanchez. You've seen it with, Jaden Davis. There's way more examples I just can't remember, but it happens way too often.
Parnell Motley was a name that was kind of like that. He got better towards the end. He came back around, but there was a period of time where he was kind of on that list, but he did come back around. But yeah, I don't know who you would blame for that. I don't know if it's coaching. I don't really know what, but it's gotta it's got to be fixed because it's getting frustrating for sure. Um, but in general,
I think the big thing though, sorry to interrupt you though, is we got to talk about the linebackers because that is something we're concerned about them in the passing game. This 5 to 10 yard range passes are really what are hurting us a lot this season. The past OU defenses, we're worried about the deep ball and getting burned. Right now, it's these underneath routes and these where there's 3 or 4 seconds have gone by, and then all of a sudden they dump it down. Deuce Vaughn, 10 catches, 104 yards. And we know that's his game and that's how he does well, but he roasted our linebackers on that. David Ugwebu is looking like, he hadn't played linebacker his whole career because he hasn't. This is not his natural position. And you've seen it where he's gotten benched for it. He's not playing as much as Deshaun White, a guy that we are very out on recently because he wasn't making the right reads. So our run defense is good on the defensive line, so we're having to put Deshaun White out there. And Brian Asamoah is also having the same problem of reading things correctly. Our linebackers are just not seeing things right, which is just really concerning, especially for this Texas game coming against one of the best, if not the best, running back in the country who does everything in Bijan Robinson.
Well, yes, that definitely a concern. And I think the problem is, just like with the offense, at times it's about layers, and this team is not really suited to like sitting back and trying to make reads and try to cover these sort of things, which is a problem. You should be able to do that, but when you're not getting that pressure, not making those hits, you're forcing guys like Brian Asamoah, who poor guy, it looked like he had concrete in his shoes trying to chase down Deuce Vaughn. That's just not his strong suit, and that's kind of a problem when you are that hyper aggressive. It works when you're getting sacks, getting takeaways. It works great, but I don't know if the personnel is physically kind of set up for that style of game. So if you are going to play like that, you gotta get hits, because I don't want to see poor David Ugwebu have to tackle Deuce Vaughn again. That was so sad.
Yeah, David Ugwebu is way too big for that. He's already a big linebacker. Watching him chase Deuce Vaughn was really sad. And I think these opposing offensive coordinators have found this out about us, that our outside cornerbacks have the same two weaknesses, and they do not do well in press coverage. And our inside linebackers, all three of them have the same weakness in that they do not do well in open space. They are good, going downhill, hitting gaps and playing the run, but playing the space in the pass game or in the zone is absolutely none of their repertoire. So they're just going to keep hitting us with these short little dump downs to the running backs and slants to the wide receiver if we don't change something and help them out. And whether that be, kind of show some gadgets with our safeties and move them around, which we might not be able to do because our safeties have been hurt. With Delaren Turner-Yell being out, he should be back for Texas because he was kind of a close-in decision for K-State, but ended up not traveling. He should be good to go. But do we need to bring up one extra safety in the box and play one safety high? Would that be helpful? We need to do something a little bit different.
Yeah, definitely need some tweaks for sure. And the amount of times Deuce Vaughn was just wide open, in the flat, were just infuriating. But I don't know. We got to figure it out. We got to figure it out because right now, watching these guys try to cover. And sit back. It's like watching me attempt to talk to women in 8th grade. It just didn't work. It was just incredibly
They tried
awkward.
hard, though. They try really hard. It just doesn't work.
But again, they're just not equipped for that, just like me. I tried very hard, just honestly did not work. But anyways, yeah, so let's kind of pivot over to game balls. Jameson, I have to give mine to Delaren Turner-Yell because he missed the game and we really missed him. So I
shows you how special he is on this defense. That him being gone put us all where we had to put Key Lawrence out there dropping INT.
Exactly.
Delaren Turner-Yell would have caught that.
Delaren Turner-Yell would have 4 picks. It would have been great. So he clearly gets my game ball. No, for real though. I kind of really loved Justin Broyles in this game. I feel like he had some really big hits. When things started picking up in that second half, when they were starting to, make the right reads, get the pads popping, I feel like he was a standout as that game progressed. And honestly, I don't like giving game balls to coaches, but shout out to Alex Grinch for making adjustments at halftime. That unit looked significantly better in the second half, I think.
Yeah, I like the way Broyles played. He played aggressive. He was not letting the runners and catchers come to him. He was going towards them, which has been a problem for us this year. He had that great play where he blew up the little bubble screen or whatever it was to the right side and popped him. That felt really nice. I was thinking about giving it to Justin Broyles, and I still might do it, even though I want to pick something different. I just like the way his aggressiveness and the way he played. And the defensive line, they just didn't do enough, even though they did decently, for me to say, yeah, I need to give it to one of them. I think, Justin Broyles is my game ball as well.
There you go. I love it. Love it. Love a good game ball sweep. For sure. But, you're right. I think with the D line, you got to hold them to a higher standard just naturally, because we've seen them play at such a higher level, both this season and in the last, that it's like, yeah, I mean, a good performance, but was it game ball worthy? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, let's wrap a bow on this. I'm so happy to not have to worry about Kansas State this entire season. Knock on wood. Please do not make the Big 12 Big 12 championship. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. If you want to talk about special teams, Gabe Burkich looked good again. And that kick return was garbage, but I don't really know how much you can.
Tyrese's fault.
It's Tyrese's fault, and maybe kind of their fault for not being prepared for the onside, even though everything worked out okay. But what are you gonna say? What are you gonna say? So.
That's just a scouting thing. They K-State saw there's a weakness in the way we play. There's the middle of our kickoff return team is not paying close enough attention to the kick. They're getting ready to block and not worrying about being tricked. I'm glad they did that, because now they'll have that in the back of their brain, and no team will even dare to try that on us again, hopefully. But before we move on, Bobby, did you have one more point? Because I want to hit Cruton Corner before we end the pod.
Oh, absolutely. I was just going to say, got to give credit to Chris Kleiman. That guy is wily as hell. You see how he won all those games at North Dakota State with just like 100% just balls to the wall, like energy, getting wild with it. It is never fun playing one of his teams. You have to always be on top of it. And shout out to OU for having the energy to match it, even though they kind of had to because the game was close.
For sure. I completely agree. He's a great coach up there in Manhattan for him, and looks like a guy that would be someone that could stay there for the long term, signing the contract extension and all of that. Last year was big, but he kind of fits their culture, and I really hope that he doesn't get sniped off by somebody else, because I think he's an Iowa guy. So I think
that could be a Kirk Ferentz replacement right there.
Yeah, because if Iowa continues to be playing well, like they're currently number 3 in the nation, and they have a huge game coming up this weekend, top 5 matchup. Is it Penn State, right?
Yep.
They're playing, and it's at Iowa. If they win that game and they continue on, there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be looking at him as a coach. So I don't think Kleiman would leave right then and there, because he just signed the extension, has a pretty decent buyout, but he fits pretty well in Manhattan, and I think they like him there too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good culture fit, and it took him a lot to leave North Dakota State too. So I don't know. And as we know with Bill Snyder, K-State, they'll keep you around as long as you can, just as long as you're not Ron Prince, who is garbage.
Oh,
God,
man.
What a mess. Anyways, Jameson, let's hit that Cruton Quarter. What do you say?
David.
Yes?
What is this, David?
This is a
Cruton Corner with Jamison.
Everybody dancing now.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I'll keep this quick. We talked a lot about K-State game because we didn't have to keep it short to talk about our next week's opponent. But there's big something coming up, and that is Gabe Brownlow Dindy is announced his commitment date for October 12th, which would be a week from Tuesday, the Tuesday after OU Texas weekend, and it is down in between us and Texas A&M. All of the experts right now have him pegged to go to Oklahoma. I don't know if he's going to squeeze in an A&M visit this coming weekend, which is a possibility. But just remember, he is an OU legacy. His parents went there, but also his dad just took a job to be a minister in College Station. So there's a couple of pulling things, but the reports from a lot of the insiders on, the crystal balls are saying that they feel like he's going to go to OU. And this is like the number one defensive tackle in the nation, guys. So this is a huge, huge deal and a once in a lifetime kind of thing for OU, because not many of these guys that he's going to high school in Florida right now. They don't usually come to OU. So this is very big. So make sure you guys keep an eye on that. And I'll remind you next week as well during the Cruton Corner.
Yep. The rare Jaden Hazelwood style connection where it's like, oh yeah,
exactly.
That weird like legacy ties, but I'm in Florida. It's awesome. Well, yeah, that'd be huge because D linemen, like I said, they're hard to find. It's hard to find really damn good ones, especially at the tackle position. So that would be a huge get. All right, James,
yeah, and another thing, just one quick thing. I'm sorry, I just remember this. I didn't get to mention this last one, which I should have. We were talking about how is Chris McClellan, the high-end 4-star defensive lineman out of Owasso, was going to deal with all of the drama that happened in Norma during his visit. All these crystal balls are rolling in for him to OU as well. They're low confidence, though, so it's not like he's ready to commit to us. But it's a battle between us and Florida. So it's going to be a lot closer, and we felt like we were running behind Florida. It looks like we've kind of taken the lead slightly. So this one's going to be another thing to watch out for. This defensive line class could be very good if we land both of those guys.
Yeah, and Florida and Dan Mullen, falling apart would be very nice in that situation. Which
completely forgot about that. Thank you, Mr. Stoops.
Yeah, Mark Stoops. That's probably his second best Stoops in my book, for sure. No.
Number three.
Yeah, because Drake's. I complete. Duh. Yeah. What am I thinking?
And no love for Isaac for quitting the team and pledging fraternities instead.
Yeah. Hey, he can do whatever he wants to do. He's
but not as good as Mark.
Isaac's probably in that case fourth favorite Stoops. I can't think of another one. But anyways, Jameson, thank you so much for popping on for this OU K-State recap. And I'm excited for all of our OU Texas content we got coming your way. The Red River rant segments are going to be very fun. So definitely keep an eye on that on all of our social medias. And Jameson, give us a little preview. What are you going to be ranting about this week?
Yeah, well, I think we'll throw a little short at y'all on Twitter or on Instagram Reels and just little topics of the game or, the culture around the game. We'll each have our own little topic. And my thing that I'm very passionate about the fair is the corn dog. I think that there's a specific way to do it. And it's, what is Fletcher corny dogs? How do you get them? What is the correct way to get them? And the correct way is to not eat them in Norman at stupid Golden Chicks beforehand. So if you've ate a corny dog from Fletcher's from OU Stadium, I'm not going to say it. Shame on you.
We'll save it for that. We'll save it for that for sure. But I can't wait. We'll have a variety of us giving us our own individual rants for sure. But keep an eye out on all of our podcast streams. Of course, got to take a look at the YouTube channel for all of the visual action as well. And keep it tuned. We're going to be having a very big Red River week. I can't wait. Might get back into the writing game with a little state fair preview as well. But just keep it tuned, and it's gonna be a fun week. I can't wait. So, anyways, that was the Schooner Pod, our K-State recap. We will see you next time when we talk about Texas. I can't wait. Y'all have a good one. Talk to you soon. Boomer Sooner.